We're in the garden today again, and we're going to start with shape and turn it into form. So I'm just going to put a quick line around. I'm just using a tin to get my circle, which is the shape. Okay, so I'm creating the basic shape. We're going to turn this shape, which is a circle, and we're going to turn this into a ball, which is three-dimensional. So we're going to imagine the light coming from one direction. So normally you'd have light coming from the right top, or the left top, or the top perpendicular, and the side. Very rarely does the light come from the bottom. So we're not going to have light from the top directly, we're going to have light from the top right hand side. So if we want to have a ball shape, we're going to make a highlight off center into the right hand side. The light is going to hit the side of the ball here, and we're also going to look at light that is reflected back off the bottom, and we'll indicate that towards the end of the demonstration. I'm using these wonderful chalk sticks, these charcoal sticks, which is a soft charcoal wrapped in a plastic sleeve. Very, very cool. So let's just begin and see what happens. I'm going to just indicate a little bit of an idea there that this area wants to be as light as possible. This area here wants to be as dark as possible, and then around the side of the ball we're going to have a dark area. So let's just start and see what happens. I'm using chalk. Well, it's charcoal, and it's like chalk, behaves like chalk. And let's just start. So it's going to be really, really dark at the bottom on this edge, and the dark is indicated by shadow. It's giving me shadow. So we're turning a circle into a ball. There's going to be a little bit of dark on that side. The nice thing about using the charcoal is that we can smudge it to make it light or dark. So that's as easy as it is, and it's a wonderful exercise because you would use this in any shape whatsoever, even in a portrait, the side of the face, even in understanding the shadows of any shape that you need. So I'm smudging it around like that, and I'm going to drag it. This is about, let's call it 100% white. So I need an eraser to rub that little dot out. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to lighten, leave some residue behind, so that when I smudge it, it actually is, we're able to get those middle tones. This is really the darkest side, the one I'm doing now. It's the darkest side, and we start getting a sense of this sphere, this round ball. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to softly smudge this in, try and keep that highlight. I'm going to be getting an eraser to take that little spot out, and if we see this as being 100%, then this is going to, let's say it's 50%. And what another thing is, I've used a board which has been painted with normal PVA, just easygoing PVA. Doesn't have to be, it's just an exercise. So this light is going to bounce. It's going to come up from the top right hand side, my top right hand side, and it's going to bounce off the floor or the ground and give me this highlight on the bottom. I'm simply erasing this mark, and I'm erasing this mark because we all know it's coming from the top The light is coming from the top down. Okay, and we continue to blend this in with my finger, and we're blending this in. You can hear the birds in the background, a lot of doves in the background. Now what I want to point out at this stage is that we've got light coming from the top, which means that the ball is going to create a shadow. So if I indicate a shadow being there at this base of the ball, it's telling me where the ball is. The ball is sitting on the ground, and I've got light angle coming in from here. So take your pencil and just create a line perpendicular to that. So your shadow that's sitting on the ground is going to be around about there. We've got light from this angle. If it's from another angle, you do the same. But what we're doing now is we're going to go from that angle, we go to the tangent of the circle, and the light is going to be from about there, and you take it across this way, tangent to this edge, so that the shadow is going to be around about there. So let's do that. I'm going to create the shadow that this is based on. Right now I just want to take this edge off. I want to get this to become a middle tone. So what we're doing is we're actually just using tone, and you would end up doing the same if you were painting something. Now I'm just going to change this orientation. There's my ball, very, very basic, the anatomy of a ball, and this is going to be the shadow that runs across this way. I've just changed it so it's not flat on. I'll show you flat on as we go, only because of the angle in my right hand. I want to get it, create a bit of a straight line, and all I'm doing is making a straight line. Because it's a ball, this is going to become a curve. So the back of the ball is giving me this edge here. It's getting that, and then we're going to get a little curve in here, okay, which creates the shadow of the ball on the ground. So I'm going to make this as almost one tone, and make it a darkish tone, yeah, because it's about 50%. I call this 0%. You want this up to about 100%, right on the edge, 100%. And to differentiate the two, the ball and the shadow on the ground, I'm going to make this about 80%. So we're going to smudge that in. Okay, get that in like that. Try and keep it consistent, because this shadow is quite consistent. So that's it. I'm going to come back a little bit later on in the second half of the video. Well, we'll see how far we go, but the next stage is to show how this shadow that happens here is going to tell you where the ball is. Where is the ball? Is the ball on the ground? Is it above? Is it bouncing? Is it falling? Is there a space in between? And then we see what that does. And then possibly get to another stage where we see the ball is actually sitting against a wall or something, and the shadow is doing something else. So this shadow is really, really important. That's really, really important. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint the shadow out with white and let it dry, and then show the next stage, the second stage of where this ball is. At the moment it's sitting on the ground. All I'm doing is taking some of my basic acrylic, not very expensive acrylic, and I'm going to make the background a texture, and I'm also going to grey it. It's going to pick up this charcoal and it's going to grey it, so it's like a grey, soft grey, because it's going into the paint, and I'm edging the ball. Remember that the ball is a demonstration but the concept of the light coming off the one side and the shadow that it forms applies to anything. Applies to a tree, an apple, of course, because it's a circle, a round object, and there we go. So I'm giving myself a little bit of a heavy texture here. There's a tractor in the background making a big noise going past. There we go. So we can go past. We live in quite a farming community here, so it's like tractors, and I haven't had a cow or a horse walk in the street, but I wouldn't be surprised because we are in this farming community. So this white that I'm putting on is going to carry a second layer when it dries. This is acrylic I'm painting with, so it dries quickly. And we'll see the next stage. I just love the way that white acrylic paint, not mixed with water, and mixes up on the board with the grey of the charcoal, and it's really a lovely toning device. But what I'm doing now is I'm putting a second layer on so that this shadow that we had at the bottom here doesn't distract from the exercise. And now I'm going to let that dry. So let the paint dry. There's a bit of sun. It's very early morning, so but it's a beautiful, beautiful day. Sun is bright, giving me good light for the camera. So I've kind of circled the ball. We're going to play inside here with acrylic later on, but the next exercise is to shift the shadow and see what happens to the position or the orientation of the ball. So wait for the next stage. I'm waiting for the paint to dry at the back, the white background, and I think that's enough to demonstrate what we're doing. So I'm going to just be making some masks here, cutting out to demonstrate how important this shadow is at the bottom, telling you where the ball is. It's important as a principle of art that you would take every possibility in terms of the shadows, the shadow areas. So I'm cutting out the mask, got a little cutter here, and we're going to demonstrate. So we're cutting the mask just to show this shadow that happens on the ball, then the important shadow that happens when the light changes. So our light is coming this way from the front and on the right. Now I'm going to change that angle, and it's going to tell me where this ball is sitting. So once again, we've got this line that happens here. Let's imagine instead of a 45 degree, we've got a light that's coming from the back to the front. So our ball is going to, the angle of this ball is going to change. So let's just darken this one. I've got two pieces of paper here, and we put that one aside. And what I'm going to do, let's put this aside so we don't dirty that paper, that board. Let's just make a dark mark very quickly, just give you an idea of the angle of the light that's coming and hitting the ball. So I'm just darkening that. Let's rub it in a bit. Let's rub it in. Now if I put that piece of paper that I've just cut out now there, it's telling me that the light is coming from the back of the ball. We're actually looking over the top of the ball, and this highlight would actually change, but this gives you a very clear idea of how the light coming from the back gives you this changed angle of the shadow. So let's do it again, and we turn it that way. So now what's happening is the light's coming from the further towards you, the light is hitting the ball, and it's giving you a deeper shadow, a changed shape, telling you where this ball is sitting. or where you're viewing the ball from. So viewing the ball from the top, whereas the first demonstration we were viewing the ball from the angle that of like a table, sitting on a table, and our eye level is totally different. So what we do now, let's just turn this around, and you see how that that kind of illustration changes where you are seeing the ball. From what angle are you seeing the ball? If we turn it here, we turn it there, the light is coming from more my side, and this is coming from the behind the ball. So that's quite an interesting way of seeing how this happens. So now I think that our background is dry. The next thing I'd like to demonstrate is we're going to lift the ball off the ground, and lift the ball off the ground. So our shadow is not going to be where it was before, it's going to be here, and remembering that the angles are around about there. So I'll give myself a little mark there, 45 degree, 45 degree, so I'll give myself a mark there, and they are perpendicular. If you're dealing with the sun, it's absolutely perpendicular. If you're dealing with a light that is close to the ball, it's not going to be perpendicular, it's going to be more of a perspective. So let's just sketch this in. I'm going to give it a little curve like that, and you can see already what's happening. It's going to lift the ball off the ground. So I'm putting my charcoal pencil in, and this can be as any dark, very dark, it can be grey, it could be very, very light, which means that the light that's emitting here is not very strong. So what I'm doing there is giving you a demonstration of how it lifts the ball off the ground, as if it was bouncing or falling or somehow being lifted up off the ground. There's my shadow. And this is a wonderful exercise to do as many times as you can, because it applies to everything. It applies to a cube, circle, well, a square, circle, and a triangle, turning the square into a cube, turning the circle into a ball, and then turning a triangle into a pyramid. So that's just giving me the middle tones. The other thing that I'd like to say is you've got the very dark, you've got the middle tone, and you've got the very light. That's the simplest way of dividing up your tonal values that happen in an exercise like this. So there we go. That gives me an idea of where the next stage is. Now what I'm going to do, because charcoal and acrylic work so nicely together, I'm going to attempt to paint over with acrylic the charcoal. And you might say, well, this, is an okay exercise, it looks like it's finished, but it can go further by actually smudging in more paint into your charcoal. And the charcoal gives you this grey with the white. I've got hardly any paint on my paintbrush, and that's what it ends up looking like. So we end up with a paintbrush that is half charcoal and half paint, and it's just working as a scrubbing medium now. So we put some light in there, and it blends into the, I'm just picking up some more. I'm actually using the top of my table. I haven't even got a palette with me. I really want to emphasize the ease, that it's so easy to create a piece of work with minimal material. You don't have to have all the fancy stuff. And we're ending up with this kind of grey ball The other thing is to remember the surface of the ball is going to indicate how rough or how smooth you have this the final texture. So it could be a smooth, like a piece of metal or a plastic ball, or it could be an apple which has slight variations in its shape. It's not a super circle, but what I'm doing is I'm painting acrylic into the charcoal, and before the acrylic dries, we give it I'm going to change the orientation of this page for the moment. Give myself a super highlight here. Give myself a super highlight. I'm going to, and then blending this grey in to the charcoal, smudging it in with the brush. And this is a really cool exercise just to get your eye in, understand the change from a circle, which is shape. The circle is shape, and we're changing it into form, which is a ball with dimension. So that's good enough for now. And then we could do it down in a shadow here, give us a softer feel, not such a textured feel, and soften this shadow. And that's about it. I'm happy. Yep, this is cool. So far so good. Now you can really go crazy with this paint. It ends up to be a painting on its own. I'm going to actually take it further and see what happens. We'll stop for now, and then we come back and we go more abstract, remembering that we're dealing with a dry medium, which is our charcoal, and a wet medium, which is our paint. So now I'm going to go crazy in terms of the abstraction of this painting. And I'm going to take it hopefully to another level, and I'm going to create an edge around here with one side of my brush being charcoal-ish and the other side of my brush being paint-ish. So it's mixing. I'm only using one brush here, but I'm giving myself a background and using the texture of the board to make that background happen. Picking up a little bit more white paint and just creating an abstracted kind of painting from the exercise. And it's really cool. It's fun to do. It is fun to do because it doesn't really matter if it goes wrong. It's an exercise. It's exercise in looking at your shadows. Now, I must point out again that we've got the light coming from this angle here, so it's going to give you the sense of where this ball is sitting in space. And I must point out again, this shadow at the bottom is probably more important than all of the other stuff. This shadow tells you where it is. So now imagine this is a tree. Find your light direction. Is it coming from over your right hand shoulder and 45 degrees? It'll give you an idea of where this shadow wants to be of the tree, or an apple, or a whole bowl of apples. The bowl has got a shadow, the apple's got a shadow, you know, so it applies to almost any object. And I think that's quite cute. I like it a lot. It's almost like this ball is moving. It's got those movement lines of a cartoon. And what I'm going to do here is take a look at the whole painting. Have a look at it from a distance. You know, stand up or stand up out off your chair and look at what it looks like, and then change it as you need to. this is pretty much the end, and I'd like to say again, I hope you've enjoyed this exercise. Try it, give it a go, and give you a bit of a close-up of the textures that have happened, and I think it looks cool. Got to give it an angle because we've got very early morning sun, so that's pretty much it for now. It's just an exercise, something that you do when you've finished a very serious painting and you've sort of kind of burnt out and you don't feel like doing much detail. Just do an exercise like this and put them up on the wall of your studio, all the exercises, and you see, wow, there's like different ways of seeing a simple object. Probably the most basic object is a circle, probably, I don't know. That's it. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Try the exercise, it's really, really cool. This is kind of the final stage of this painting. I've put a border in here, and I'm going to continue with the smudging effect. I love it. It's so cool because it just concentrates on tonal values instead of being confused in that with color. Which color should I use? And that's for another exercise. Now there's a crop sprayer coming across. You can hear the background. It's like a helicopter thing. But I'm going to talk over it and speak louder. There's nothing I can do about it. They've got, you can hear that helicopter. Isn't that crazy? It's crazy, crazy. I'm going to pick up some really strong light. Even give myself a, well, let's talk later when the helicopter's gone. That's what happens in a garden studio. It's not soundproof. Let's give ourselves a dimension, which I wasn't really planning, but that's just the way it could happen. So there we go. Give us a little bit of a dimension so that there's a perspective line that happens in there. And this ends up to be quite a cute little painting. You know, and nothing you really want to keep. It's not like a selling painting. It might sell, I don't know. But it's more an exercise painting, giving you, I think I'm going to do another one. I've done many of these because it's like nourishing. It's nourishing for you. Your artwork will grow from doing small exercises like this. So there we go. I did say thanks for watching, but I do want to say it again. See you in the next video.